Justin Baldoni just brutally destroyed Blake Lively in open court after exposing her shiny new bribery scandal. And no, this isn't one of Blake's cute PR stunts. This time, the receipts are loud, ugly, and legally binding. The judge may have played dumb before, but now even he can smell the scandal she practically hand-delivered. Because this time, Blake Lively's deposition was finally locked in for July 17th, but what should have been a routine legal appearance turned into a headline-grabbing spectacle. In a case already riddled with drama and whispers of influence, Blake decided she wouldn't be setting foot in opposing counsel Brian Friedman's office. Instead, she demanded her deposition happen on her terms, at the plush, heavily guarded Beverly Hills office of her own legal team. The excuse? Extreme safety risks. But no documentation, no police reports, no verified threats, just vague concerns wrapped in celebrity mystique. And somehow, that was enough to derail the normal flow of justice. What happened next exposed a system bending at the knees for fame and fortune. The move stunned court watchers and legal analysts alike. In every deposition across the country, from billion-dollar disputes to petty civil suits, the standard is clear. You show up where the opposing counsel calls you, period. But Blake Lively just rewrote that rulebook, citing danger without proof, and demanding to play by a different set of laws. It wasn't about safety, it was about optics, control, and keeping the narrative tightly sealed. Because at Brian Friedman's office, she'd face cameras, questions, and a legal team that doesn't cater to red carpet egos. At her lawyer's office, everything would be curated, managed, contained. But even Hollywood PR can't spin what came next into anything but a judicial failure. Civil rights attorney Omar Iqbal didn't mince words on national television. "This is unprecedented," he said bluntly. "You don't get to choose your opponent's turf in court." The way he said it, with that clipped legal authority, struck a nerve across the legal community. Because in the real world, where regular people can't afford designer security teams or luxury legal offices, the system doesn't bend. It doesn't ask how comfortable you are. It demands your presence, your answers, your truth. But for Blake, comfort trumped protocol. And the audacity of that decision was amplified tenfold by who rubber-stamped it. Because the real shock wasn't her request, it was who approved it, and how easily. Legal panels across platforms, from court TV to Law and Crime, rushed in to condemn what they called a celebrity privilege loophole. Blake wasn't just setting a precedent, she was stomping all over the one that already existed. This wasn't a matter of tweaking logistics for someone's health or trauma history. This was a textbook power move, one that eroded the very principle of procedural equality. If celebrities get to pick their interrogators, their deposition couch, and their latte preference, what does that say to every victim, every whistleblower, every working-class litigant forced to face their accuser in hostile territory? And then, just when it couldn't get more disgraceful, the judge made it official. Without requesting any verified threat assessments or supporting documentation, the judge granted Blake's demand in full. No subpoenas for her security records, no evidentiary hearing, not even a sealed declaration outlining her supposed risk level. Just a flat-out approval, as if her fame alone carried legal weight. And in doing so, the court effectively told the country that stars don't just walk red carpets, they walk all over the justice system too. It wasn't a ruling, it was a red carpet unfurled across the courtroom floor, and the gavel hit like a standing ovation. But what if that gavel didn't drop in isolation? What if this ruling was part of something far more calculated? Moreover, Brian Friedman didn't just push back, he detonated. Justin Baldoni's lead attorney filed a blistering 87-page objection that ripped through the courtroom like a legal missile. This wasn't a polite disagreement or some procedural nitpick. Friedman outright accused Blake Lively of actively manipulating court optics to craft a false public image while sabotaging the fairness of the case. Every paragraph in his objection read like a courtroom thriller, packed with receipts, timelines, and exhibits so damning they could scorch the edges of a judge's robe. It was more than a legal counter. It was an accusation of deceit, orchestration, and privilege run wild. But the real damage came from what Friedman attached, not what he wrote. Tucked into the filing were official exhibits from Blake's own security team, emails, logs, memos, all showing one glaring truth: no credible threats, no stalkers, no police files, no event logs flagged for danger, just vague concerns and an ever-growing list of curated fears with no foundation. Friedman slammed it all onto the record like a hammer, exposing how her entire safety claim had been smoke and mirrors. The risk, it turned out, wasn't to her safety. It was to her public image, her carefully sculpted celebrity narrative that couldn't afford a hostile legal confrontation on someone else's turf. But the court hadn't seen the dirtiest piece of evidence yet, until Friedman leaked the emails. In a brutal move, Friedman submitted an internal chain of emails between Blake's PR agents and legal advisors. The subject line? Her PR recovery event. The context? Her deposition. This wasn't a legal obligation in their eyes, it was a branding opportunity. Her team discussed angles, lighting, messaging, and narrative framing like it was a Vanity Fair shoot, not a legal interrogation. One line casually referenced the setup being less aggressive at our firm, where optics can be managed. Friedman didn't need to exaggerate. The emails did the dirty work for him. The deposition wasn't about truth. It was about control. And then Friedman did something few lawyers dare to do. He went after the judge himself. With the courtroom still reeling from the PR event bombshell, Friedman filed a motion to have the presiding judge recused. The reason? Potential ties to Blake's former law firm, the very one now coordinating her legal narrative from the shadows. It was a gutsy, almost nuclear move, a direct hit on the court's credibility. In legal circles, accusing a judge of bias is a last resort, a high-risk maneuver. But Friedman was done playing defense. He was here to dismantle every piece of protection Blake had built, including the judicial shield she appeared to be hiding behind. And if you thought that was bold, his closing line in court sent a chill down every spine in that room. Standing firm, Friedman declared, "This isn't about safety. This is about silencing the defendant and staging a press narrative." He didn't blink, didn't waver. It wasn't just an accusation. It was a warning. Blake wasn't trying to escape danger. She was trying to escape accountability. And Friedman, armed with evidence, insider emails, and a courtroom megaphone, had just made sure the whole world knew it. But what if the real twist isn't what Friedman exposed, but how deep this goes behind closed doors? What started as a quiet whisper inside the courtroom corridors erupted into a full-blown legal earthquake. A court staffer, under strict anonymity, allegedly leaked a batch of internal judicial documents, and what those files revealed wasn't just troubling, it was damning. Judge Gerald Michaels had dismissed 3 of Baldoni's key claims without granting a single hearing. No oral arguments, no deliberation, just silent erasure. One of those buried claims involved a subpoena demanding access to communications between Blake Lively and NBC reporter Kat Tenbarge, emails that could have reshaped the narrative entirely, and yet, they vanished from the docket like they never existed. But someone outside the courtroom wasn't about to let that erasure go unnoticed. Within 48 hours, a viral TikTok storm exploded across the internet. One legal creator broke down every preliminary decision made by Judge Michaels in this case, highlighting a chilling 92% pattern in favor of Blake Lively's team. Not 60%, not 75%, 92%. For a case this polarizing, with lawyers and networks involved on both sides, that figure raised eyebrows higher than Blake's Hollywood arches. Clips stitched together sound bites from the hearings, side by side with court filings, exposing a judicial record that looked less like impartiality and more like a loyalty program. And the court of public opinion? It roared to life. But it wasn't just the math that raised alarms, it was the money behind the scenes. A new leak followed, this time in the form of a whistleblower email that set social media on fire. The anonymous sender alleged a $250,000 donation had been quietly funneled to a so-called judicial mentorship nonprofit affiliated with the office of Judge Michaels' own clerk. The timing of the donation was no coincidence. It hit just 3 days before Michaels denied Baldoni's emergency motion to preserve production records. The nonprofit's finances had no clear source of recurring funding, no board transparency, and no trail. except for this single, eye-watering deposit. And speculation wasn't just encouraged, it was now armed with receipts. From a leak to a firestorm, the online backlash tore through the legal facade like wildfire. Within hours, hashtags like bribed, by Blake, justice for Justin trended across Twitter, Threads, and even LinkedIn. Influencers, legal analysts, and extrajudicial clerks weighed in with fury. Reddit forums dissected court calendars and cross-referenced donation records. Even journalists who'd previously stayed neutral started hinting at ethical conflicts too big to ignore. The narrative had shifted. Blake wasn't the victim of a toxic press cycle anymore. She was now the potential architect of a judicial cover-up. And Judge Michaels, once a quiet figure behind the bench, now became the symbol of a justice system dangerously close to collapse. But the next move wasn't going to come from the internet. It was about to come from deep inside the courtroom walls. By July 18, Justin Baldoni had reached his breaking point, and he didn't whisper his truth, he detonated it. Standing outside the courthouse, surrounded by reporters, flashing bulbs, and a public hungry for answers, he delivered a statement so blunt it cut through the legal fog like a blade. This isn't a case anymore. It's a cover-up. No preamble, no PR gloss, just a straight shot into the bloodstream of a scandal that had outgrown its courtroom confines. That one sentence didn't just go viral, it ignited a cultural moment. And what followed next proved he wasn't bluffing. Because within minutes, the next bombshell came straight from Baldoni's fingertips. Justin posted a now-deleted Instagram story that sent shockwaves through every corner of the internet. It was a redacted email, blurry, cropped, but unmistakably damning. It appeared to show a conversation between a Blake-linked PR agent and a judicial aide, discussing timing and narrative containment ahead of Blake's deposition approval. Whether it was legally admissible or not didn't matter at that moment. What mattered was that Baldoni had blown a hole in the wall, separating public image from private corruption, and the court of public opinion came charging through. And in just 24 hours, that court of public opinion did what no attorney could. Over 1.2 million signatures flooded a Change.org petition demanding a full judicial ethics investigation into Judge Michaels' rulings, financial connections, and handling of the Lively case. People who had never watched a deposition clip in their lives were now dissecting court procedures, quoting civil codes, and demanding transparency. Celebrities, legal scholars, and even 2 former prosecutors added their names. This wasn't outrage, it was a movement. The system was no longer seen as flawed, it was seen as compromised, and Justin had become the face of those fighting back against a justice system tainted by influence. And unlike Blake's team, who played defense, Baldoni's lawyers went straight for the throat. Within hours, his legal team filed a motion to reopen discovery, citing the bribery allegations, the leaked communications, and deliberate media manipulation by Blake's PR infrastructure. They weren't just looking for another hearing, they were demanding a full reset. Reopen the files, re-examine the evidence, retrace every step that Judge Michaels had touched. Their filing accused the court of procedural bias and information suppression, calling the case structurally compromised. They wanted a forensic review of emails, motions, and every communication between the court and Blake's counsel since day one. And behind the scenes, something even more serious had already begun unraveling. TMZ and Deadline both dropped quiet confirmations. An internal judicial probe had been launched. Judge Michaels' office was now under review, not because of rumors, but because of real, documented, digital red flags. The judiciary had gone into lockdown. Clerks weren't talking. Files were under double lock. The same judge who had waved Blake's demands through like red carpet privileges was now being watched by the very system he once presided over. This wasn't just about one case anymore. This was about the integrity of the entire bench. And if you think Justin was done fighting, wait until you see what he does with a courtroom finally on even ground. Inside the courtroom, the energy had shifted, and Blake Lively's legal team felt the tremor first. Attorney Stephanie Jones, usually composed and camera-ready, appeared visibly rattled as she rushed to file an emergency gag order against Baldoni's team. Her voice shook as she accused Justin of tainting the public narrative, but no one was buying it. Not after the leaks, the protests, and the damning Instagram posts. The request wasn't about protecting justice. It was about trying to plug holes in a ship already sinking under the weight of its own lies. The panic was no longer hidden. It was on full display. And when the panic spills outside the courtroom, the damage control gets dirtier. Blake's legal team had also fired off subpoenas to multiple YouTubers who had dared to cover the scandal. These weren't journalists with network contracts. These were creators, analysts, and influencers with millions of followers and zero corporate filters. But when those subpoenas landed, most of them refused to comply. They cited First Amendment protections and accused Lively's camp of weaponizing the legal system to silence public scrutiny. One creator posted the subpoena online with a caption that read, "She can't handle the truth, so she's trying to sue it." The attempt to muzzle critics had officially backfired, and behind the scenes, the cracks inside her own support system started to widen. Whispers turned into headlines when rumors surfaced that Ryan Reynolds had pulled financial backing from Blake's legal team. The reason? Simple. Public opinion had flipped, and Reynolds, ever the PR tactician, wanted distance. He hadn't been spotted entering court. He wasn't posting support. And sources close to the team claimed he refused to sign off on a second round of litigation funding. Whether out of self-preservation or disgust, his silence spoke louder than any tweet. Suddenly, the Lively camp was not only under fire, they were underfunded. And when reputations are at risk, Hollywood's elite call in the crisis wolves. Enter Edelshire & Crane, a high-powered crisis PR firm known for cleaning up messes too toxic for traditional spin. They issued a carefully worded statement declaring that the bribery accusations were baseless conspiracy theories rooted in social media hysteria. But no matter how polished the language, the internet wasn't buying it. Receipts had already been posted, patterns had been exposed, and Edelshire's talking points felt less like reassurance and more like gaslighting. It wasn't just about defending Blake, it was about suppressing a tidal wave of outrage that had already broken the dam. And then, even those sworn to analyze the law couldn't stay quiet anymore. Two senior legal analysts at Court TV resigned in protest, citing direct pressure from network executives not to cover the bribery allegations on air. One posted anonymously to a legal forum, saying, "When truth is inconvenient, they tell us to change the subject." Their departure sent a chill through the media industry. This wasn't just celebrity scandal anymore, this was systemic. It had morphed into a story too powerful to control, too ugly to ignore, and too dangerous for the people who once protected it from exposure. But what happens when the media silence breaks, and the real truth is finally broadcast for the world to see? By July 22nd, the whispers of corruption had grown too loud to ignore, and Justin Baldoni's team struck with the most explosive filing yet. Labeled Exhibit H, the document revealed a highly suspicious $250,000 bank transfer wired from a shell company called Sunset Parallax LLC, with direct ties to a Lively family trust. This wasn't some abstract donation or vague campaign contribution. It was cold, hard money, moved days before Blake's controversial deposition was approved. And no one, not even Blake's defense, had a clean answer for it. The courtroom didn't gasp. It held its breath. Because for the first time, the accusation of bribery wasn't theoretical. It was traceable. And the deeper you dug into Sunset Parallax, the dirtier it got. Sunset Parallax LLC wasn't new to Blake's orbit. That same entity had quietly funded private security for her Amazon-sponsored launch event in April, an event allegedly used to rehabilitate her image following the early waves of the court backlash. On the surface, the payments looked like standard VIP logistics, but the amounts were excessive, the vendors unusually anonymous, and the timing suspiciously close to procedural deadlines. It wasn't just about what the company paid for, it was about who it protected, when it protected them, and why it was suddenly moving six-figure sums into court-adjacent nonprofits with zero oversight. And then came the phrase that turned suspicion into strategy. The transaction memo attached to the $250,000 wire didn't use legal jargon or accounting terms. Instead, it was marked with an internal code, Project Athena. For a brief moment, it seemed meaningless, until someone connected it to a leaked strategy deck from Blake's inner circle. In the deck, Project Athena was described as a reputation pivot plan, complete with timelines, influencer coordination, media shaping, and legal de-escalation pathways. The connection was undeniable. Blake's team wasn't just fighting a legal battle, they were staging a narrative war, and now the financial trail had caught up to the script. And at that point, the system could no longer pretend it was above the scandal. That same day, watchdog group Judicial Integrity Now confirmed it had filed a formal complaint to California's Commission on Judicial Performance, citing Exhibit H and multiple signs of impropriety in Judge Gerald Michaels' handling of the case. The complaint included requests for subpoena authority, communication audits, and financial tracing, suggesting the group had gathered even more evidence than what was made public. This wasn't an influencer-led petition. It was an institutional escalation, and it put the entire court's credibility on trial. And as pressure mounted, Judge Michaels made one last move, but even that reeked of delay. With headlines ablaze and legal analysts demanding accountability, Judge Michaels suddenly filed to temporarily recuse himself from the case pending the outcome of the investigation. But the timing was too convenient, too reactive, and too late. Critics called it a calculated retreat, a way to escape the heat without facing the fire. Because recusal doesn't erase past rulings, it doesn't undo bias, it doesn't rewind what's already been decided under the shadow of influence. The damage was done, and the people knew it. But now, with the judge off the bench and the receipts in the open, the courtroom is finally stripped of illusion, and the reckoning has only just begun. With Judge Gerald Michaels finally stepping off the bench, the case has been reassigned, and the courtroom just got a whole lot colder for Blake Lively. A new hearing is now scheduled for August 2nd, this time under Judge Lenora Hart, a legal force known for her brutal intolerance of celebrity privilege and courtroom theatrics. No PR firms, no curated optics, just hard law and sharp accountability. For the first time since this scandal began, Blake is walking into a courtroom that won't accommodate her status or protect her from discomfort. The gloves are off, and this judge doesn't blink. And with that, the protections Blake once enjoyed are now being ripped away piece by piece. Her deposition, once relocated at her own request to her lawyer's cozy Beverly Hills office, must now proceed at a neutral location, or else. If she refuses to show, the court could charge her with contempt, and that would make headlines in a very different tone. This isn't just a formality anymore. It's a test of the court's integrity. No more excuses. No more ghost threats. She must sit, face the questions under oath, and finally be held to the same standards as any citizen without a Netflix deal and a PR army. And now the decisions made under Michaels' watch are hanging by a thread. Legal analysts are warning that the entire bribery probe could trigger a domino effect, invalidating previous rulings that leaned in Blake's favor. From blocked subpoenas to dismissed claims, every move made by Judge Michaels is now under a forensic microscope. If even one ruling is deemed compromised, the case could unravel and restart from scratch. Worse still, if the money trail confirms actual misconduct, we're not just talking about civil injustice, we're talking about federal crimes. That means subpoenas, depositions, and real courtroom heat for every player involved. And that's exactly what Baldoni's team is gearing up for. Justin's lawyers aren't just fighting to win a lawsuit anymore. They're pushing for a full case reassessment and preparing for a possible criminal referral. They want to know who knew what, when they knew it, and how far the rot really goes. Emails, transfers, private messages, nothing is off the table now. The goal is clear: expose the entire infrastructure that allowed celebrity power to corrode legal fairness. Because if this case gets brushed aside like another tabloid story, it sets a dangerous precedent for every high-profile abusive process to come. And the world is watching, closer than ever. Journalists, creators, legal analysts, and tens of millions of fans aren't just following the updates, they're demanding accountability. Twitter threads dissect every court filing. YouTube breakdowns expose PR tactics frame by frame. Reddit sleuths have built timelines more detailed than the actual docket. And one question keeps echoing louder than the rest. Was this ever about justice? Or was it all just another scripted power play from the start? But now that the script has been leaked, torn apart, and thrown into court under real judicial eyes, the final act might be the one nobody saw coming.